Welcome back to another edition of Splitting Hairs with Max and Nicky. As usual, I'm Max.
And I'm Nicky.
And together we're Max and Nicky. On today's episode, we will be continuing our discussion on high school. In fact, we had recorded additional material from our last discussion, and so we'll actually just be going back to that discussion that we had previously recorded.
That we had previously discussed.
Exactly.
And now for part two.
Hold on. School. I just want to say, if you enjoy listening to our podcast, please subscribe to our YouTube channel and support us at patreon.com/splittinghairs.
And please rate us on iTunes, Spotify, wherever you're listening to this podcast. We'd appreciate your listenership and your support. And now for part two of our discussion on high school.
High school. 11th grade, yes, we had a ton of work, by the way. It was a lot. It was brought on to our own selves. We took a lot of AP classes. There was just an enormous amount of pressure to get into a good college, and you want to do as much as possible, and then you have to study.
Boy, I remember...
But we did, as we mentioned, because you're taking these advanced level classes, they also start to become more interesting and start to influence what you might want to study later in life in college and what you might want to become as a career later in life. And as we mentioned, our English language teacher was a big influence on us, and I think we started to appreciate and started to develop, our minds started to develop a capacity for wanting to learn more and wanting to be more analytical. And I think our 11th grade English teacher had a big part had a lot to do with that. And then certainly our 12th grade English literature teacher, she would pose questions that were very thought-provoking, and she would kind of challenge you. And she was also an outgoing, dynamic teacher, and she made learning really actually fun. And I think those are the kinds of teachers you want in high school.
You want teachers to help breed an interest in knowledge.
For people to want to go to college and learn more.
One of my biggest,
I think
and currently
that's
one of my
big gripe with, I think, maybe just teachers
that give you busy work.
Well, not just teachers that give you busy work, but I think a lot of those kinds of teachers don't maybe really want to be teachers, and they just think, oh, I'll just be a teacher because
it's something I can do with my college degree.
That is something I can do with my college degree. Well, and then you have to go to a few extra years of school for that. But I will say that but by the way, my hat's off to teachers, though, at the same time. High school kids could be rough, very rough, and we used to substitute teach, and we went through many experiences that maybe we should just save that for another conversation altogether.
I will say I have a lot more respect for substitute teachers and teachers in general after having been a substitute teacher for a couple of years.
Yes. It's tough to teach kids. It's tough to figure out how to make them learn. That's something I wanted to mention.
We were also substitute teachers in, not the best areas, Sure.
Of the Bay Area. Sure. Well, even in some good areas, they weren't the best.
Well, no, sometimes I did teach some really good high schools where I didn't have to do anything. It was such a breeze.
Right. I will say, though, that's something I wanted to mention that we forgot to mention in ninth grade. I remember after our first day of school, our sister picked us up, or it was after our first week of school or something, and I remember she was asking us how was school, and we were talking about these teachers that seemed very kooky and interesting to us. And this isn't really going anywhere, but I remember our math teacher was particularly ridiculous. He would get the attention of the class in really funny ways. Like one time, the class was being a bit noisy, and he just started going bark, 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 bark. And it was just really funny to us. And it's just what a great way to get the attention of the class, because it seems very weird and out there to do that, but it automatically got our attention. Instead of just, all right, class, quiet down. Nobody's going to pay attention to that, but they're going to pay attention to the balking of a
He
chicken.
was such a bizarre guy, that guy.
He was a bizarre guy. And by the way, a very fitting last name. Maybe I won't say anything actually. Yeah. But he was interesting. But we liked him a lot. I had a hard time getting the attention of everyone in the class. He had our attention though, and I will say we did well in those classes.
I wanted to say something, but you were just kept going for so long on this.
Oh, our Spanish teacher for most of our time in ninth grade, he was also. I'm happy
Max,
to say
this is not
okay. You're right. You're
interesting
right.
to the people listening.
You're right.
They can't relate to this.
Well, here's something that we can relate to. Actually, my Spanish teacher in ninth grade, I didn't finish a test, and he only graded me for the portion of the test that I did, and I thought that was really nice of him.
That is so nice.
He knew that. I think he knew that I knew the material, but he had a better understanding of how students were and how they all work at their own different paces, and I think he understood that people are different and they learn or they go through certain motions at different paces, and I think he took that into consideration. And I got a good grade for the portion that I did, and he recognized that I knew the material, but that I just was a bit slower in taking the test.
Can I mention this? It will be a braggadocious thing, though, but it's kind of funny.
Okay.
When we were in Spanish 3, pardon. When we were in Spanish 3, we took this quiz.
It's a braggadocious thing, just a heads up.
And everybody in the class seemed to have failed this quiz. And I wasn't there that day. She gave back the quizzes. The teacher gave back the quizzes to the students. And one of our friends who was in the class, he had asked the teacher, "What did Nicky get on the test?" And she was like, "Oh, I'm sure he failed too," because everybody failed the test. And he's like, "You don't know?" And she's like, "Well, I haven't graded yet." And he's like, "Grade it right now." And she's like, "All right." She graded in front of him. Turned out that I got 100% on the quiz. And everybody was like, "Oh my God." Because I did have the best grade in the class.
All right,
and
Nicky,
it's pretty funny. Isn't that pretty funny?
What a braggadocious guy over
pretty
here.
Funny, yeah.
Braggadocious
What
guy.
would happen, though, eventually is that I would forget a lot of my Spanish when I started learning French.
Another good thing about that Spanish teacher in high school, that in ninth grade, was I remember one class.
That was when I was speaking of was my Spanish 3 class. That was in our sophomore year of high school.
The ninth grade one, I remember one class we started talking about philosophy instead of the class, and he said, "Look, in the grander scheme of things, you learning Spanish is important, but it's not the most important thing." And I think what he was trying to say was that us discussing philosophy in that particular day was just as important in trying to stimulate our thirst for analysis and trying to get at a deeper meaning of things.
Yeah, I want to say
he valued discussing things on an intelligent level, whatever they be, and I think that was really cool.
One of my greatest pursuits in life still today, and I think it was nurtured by good teachers like this guy and our English language and English literature teachers, is the pursuit of knowledge. And you need good teachers, especially at those impressionable ages of high school. You need people to help influence you and to nurture the desire to know more, because I feel like some people our age, they don't care to know more. They don't care to analyze or critically think.
Yeah, I want to, Nicky, you should make a distinction between knowledge. I think what Nicky's saying is, there is trivial knowledge that we care about too. But it is trivial. Admittedly.
No, but sometimes it's not.
But I'm saying, but there is also knowledge that is important to have about the world
and history,
to gain a better understanding of and a better perspective on life,
a better perspective of how we became the way we are today as a society and as a country and as a world.
And what we hope to become.
Exactly.
What we are now is what. Wait, what's the line? What we are now, we are becoming, or something like that.
What we hope to become, we are now becoming, or something like that.
No. Whatever.
What we hope to be, we are now becoming, or something like that.
No, that's not what it is. Anyway, what I think that what this teacher was saying was that Spanish is, especially in California, is very important to know, and it is, as I said before, yes, that is true, but sorry, I'm rambling a little bit.
Oh man, this is getting boring. Come on, let's get on with this, Eric.
Oh, you're telling me. Anyway, it's just there is an importance on trying to instill in students the significance of thinking critically, and that's something that I think a lot of people don't do, even in their adulthood, because they just feel like the perspective I have, the one I've been taught, is the correct one, and I'm not going to think critically about it. I'm just going to take that, have blind faith in that, and they don't seek to better understand things. They just think of the world in kind of a black and white way.
Right, when the world is very much gray.
And that's kind of on both sides of
this message
the political...
is brought to you by Governor Gray Davis.
Right. But I kind of see that on both sides of the political spectrum, much more on the conservative side, I will say.
But very much on the liberal side as well.
On the liberal side as well, though. And I think people don't seek to really use logic and rationale and really seek to understand something and discuss things, and actually discuss things in an honest way.
My favorite classes were classes in which there would be active discussion and participation amongst the students, especially in college. We're not getting to college, but
even if it might come off as to some people, even if you're touching upon some sensitive areas, it is necessary to discuss these things to arrive at an understanding,
okay, but that's not what I was just saying. But anyway, there were a couple other things I wanted to talk about that, talking about more nitty gritty. I guess people want to hear some personal things, I think, and
we did get into some personal things.
But I'm sure a lot of people experienced depression and sadness when they were in high school. It's like a common teenage kind of thing to experience. I personally, from 8th grade to 11th grade, I was I was depressed. I cried very easily.
Well, that wasn't, I don't know if you were depressed, you were sensitive.
Right. I was very sensitive.
I don't think you were depressed, though. I didn't start feeling, well, anyway,
Right. I was very sensitive, but we were also friends with some kids who, maybe because they were older, they sort of maybe kind of hazed us a little bit more, or a couple of them were kind of jerks to us a little bit, and
even some that were
made
our
me
age.
sad, and it made me
some that were our age.
It made me cry. It made me cry, at home, and
I think
it was
also
a sad
is
thing.
that
I feel like
we were an easy target.
to get bullied by your own friends is really kind of pretty harsh.
I feel like people don't really talk about that enough. I know bullying is a big topic, especially now, and especially in high school and even before then. But people won't talk about bullying from your own friends.
Right. I feel like
which is where that's where I exclusively got bullied.
I feel like I didn't get bullied at all, like by some random, punks.
No do-gooder.
No
do-gooder? No.
Do-no-gooders.
No. Do-no-gooders? Doesn't make sense.
No.
Wait. Oh, maybe you're right. Do-no-gooder. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, there were no like cliques or anything like that. There were no, bullies of our high school, like you would see on TV or film. That didn't exist. I I never really remember. I never heard of anybody getting like their head flushed down the toilet or something like that.
But if you did, that's
Yeah,
I'm
if you
sorry
did, I'm
for
sorry,
that.
but that didn't happen in our high school. But rather, I would get bullied or picked on by people I considered my friends, and that would make me sad.
That's
And-
even more sad. Well, I can't really speak for people that actually had bullies at their school, but to me, there is something more sad about that. Is like these people that are supposed to be your friends are
Right.
not that friendly.
And I kind of I delved into this in my college entrance essay. I feel like maybe part of it had to do with the fact that we're twins and we're easier target because there's two of us. So you're really getting a double dose of a strong personality. We both have strong personalities.
Well, I will say though,
and so you're getting a double dose of that. And so people can...
Hold on, let me just say...
That can be a little much for some people, and maybe they might react in a way that is not just annoyed, but they might be mean as a result. And I feel like Max and I received the butt of that a lot in high school, especially me, I think. But
no, I feel like because I kind of do feel
this happened until we got to 11th grade, and by the time we got into 11th grade, I feel like our friends that we hung out with more often maybe were people more our age, and
I will say though,
and those people were not as likely to pick on us, you know.
Let me just say though, I mean, maybe you can confirm this. I did feel like I stood up to them a little bit more. No?
I don't know about that.
I did a couple times. I think I made it known that I was, very frustrated with how they were treating us.
Part of me feels like, did they really enjoy hanging out with us? I got to think that,
Well, and you know what? Part of me also kind of feels like, not to excuse anything that they did, but maybe there were times I was being kind of annoying. Maybe I don't know.
I remember, but back then, falling in line with the idea that I was very against marijuana and smoking, and I was against people drinking too. I'm still against people drinking like excessively, and I remember we went to this party. It was right after. It was more like a hangout. It was summer after our sophomore year of high school. These friends of ours, had just graduated, or maybe a couple of them were even in their freshman year of college already. And we were hanging out, and some of them were smoking cigars, and I didn't want to hang out around them because I didn't want to be around cigar smoke. And I was really finicky about it, and to a degree that might have come across as really too prudish and annoying. And in retrospect, I can see how that came across. While at the same time, perhaps maybe they could have respected my, personal space a little bit more.
Right, but let me just say that...
But I think maybe I was a little overboard in my anti-smoking ways,
But I will say, though, even though that Nicky and I are recognizing that maybe at times we could have come across as being a little annoying, that's not to say that they weren't being annoying at times too.
Sure.
Everyone can be faulty.
But again, as I said, when you're in high school,
being kind of annoying, and I just think, I think part of the reasons we had similar personalities, and so if one of us, people would often associate, if one of us did something, they would associate both of us as doing something. So
still happens today.
It still happens today, and so I think,
and it's annoying. It's very annoying.
I think if somebody, and we often shared friends.
I mean, what I'm saying is, it's annoying when people perceive us as both doing or having a habit of doing something when only one of us does it.
Right, and I think if somebody. Right, if one of us did something and the other one did something, then they would just kind of feel like that there was this double. It was kind of compound in a way that was unfair in a way. But anyway, that's
But
in general, I will say though that just I think part of it also is in high school, you're young and you don't know how to treat people respectfully as well.
Well, you know, as
too,
I said,
you know?
but also us being the way we are, everybody's changing in high school. Even you change in college too. And you make mistakes, you do things that you regret, but you learn from those mistakes, and that's okay because you're still young, and most of these things are going to be forgivable, I think.
And look, people are even flawed still, and they will continue making those mistakes. They should try and work on those things, but, I mean, I guess we're going into a whole different subject here.
Right, but it makes me realize I don't think we've ever done a podcast episode about being twins. The subject is twins.
That is true. We
really
should do. That is numero uno on the list.
In fact, maybe we should have another pair of twins on it to compare the experiences.
Perhaps. Who? I mean, sure.
I don't know. But, I guess the last thing I want to go over is kind of something more funny, and that was our yearbook quotes. Wait,
hold on. We're not done yet. This is not the last thing. We didn't talk about senior year, baby.
Oh my God! Really? Okay.
Well,
how long?
This is a big part. You're finally
king of.
You're the king of the courtyard.
All right. Well, let me just say this about senior year to start it off.
You're the elder statesman.
When you're senior, you pick these quotes to be by your picture in the yearbook, and we were trying to be funny.
You just said
I know. Sorry. I was trying to be funny, and I said a couple things that at first I wrote. My older brother and I were trying to come up with something really funny, and we should so I ended up putting, I did a sitz bath. But in the form that said, oh, what's your quote? I put, I did a sitz bath. But then I put next to it, if you don't allow that quote, how about this? And then I said, if you don't allow this one, how about this? And I put, for that third quote, I put, what's up, Brad Pitt? That's what it said. It's just, what's up? And Brad Pitt said that. Brent came up with that idea.
Now, what is the end of this story?
What ended up happening is I look at the yearbook in the end, and it had that whole thing in there. It had, I did a sitz bath. If you don't allow that, then how about this? What's up, Brad Pitt? If you don't allow this, then how about this? Yearbooks are whatever. And
all right.
And it had the whole thing, and I'm like, oh, they completely ruined it, meaning they probably would have allowed I did a sitz bath, so I just should have put I did a sitz bath. Could you imagine a picture of me wearing a suit, an ill-fitted suit with a tie that was too wide for what I prefer now, and, picture me, look at this. I'm wearing a tie, though, and...
all right, Nicky.
It says
you're rambling here.
It says next to me, I did a sitz bath. Now that's comedy.
Okay.
What does your yearbook quote say, Max?
Well, it doesn't matter, actually. I'm sorry to say this was not, I don't think this is very interesting.
Oh, that's fun. No, that is funny. Now that's funny, Max.
Yeah, but
I did a sitz bath. Come on, that's funny.
It's a tangent that is not an analytical thing, and I think
it doesn't matter.
We don't take away from the intention of this podcast. I feel.
Yeah, but okay, we can analyze, but we can also share funny little anecdotes, can't we? I mean, is that allowed?
It is, but that was quite long.
Oh, it wasn't. That wasn't that long.
All right.
It's not as long as you would make it out to be.
Anyway.
Copying Jeff Goldblum.
Well, if you want to know my quote from yearbook, it was just... it's funny that I put this because it wasn't the high school that I went to, but I put San Dimas High School football rules, and I put B&T's Excellent Adventure. That's from Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, that line. But it is kind of funny to put that I put San Dimas High School football rules, and it's in our high school. We didn't go to San Dimas High School, which I don't even know if that's a real high school. Anyway, so senior year, by the way. So here we are, senior year, final year.
There I am, senior year.
So there I am, senior year.
There I am,
And
senior
I met
year.
the most beautiful girl in the world. I did, again, I had some nerves. I didn't get very much sleep the night beforehand, too, because I couldn't fall asleep. I would always get nerves. I didn't see these kids.
I would always get nerves.
I would always get nerves. And there she was, the most beautiful girl.
Oh, yeah, I remember first day of school, senior year. I would always get nervous, and it would affect me digestively speaking.
Well, I actually had a blemish that that had actually, well, let's just say it had went away, but there was some scarring, and it kind of was on my nose, and it was not the most ideal thing. Oh no, it was on my like upper lip, and it was not ideal for the first day of school. But you know, my friend made a joke about it in a funny way, and like not in a mean-spirited way, and you know, it was all good. It was like everyone was going through that kind of thing at the time.
You know,
that's a thing. Acne, by the way. Oh, we forgot about that. Talk about the most self-conscious time in your life.
Oh God, you feel the most self-conscious during your high school years, middle school, high school, really high school years. You're trying to grow into yourself, grow into your body, and then start being attracted to the people that you want to that you're attracted to.
You start to become attracted to people.
You're becoming attracted to people, and you want those people to be attracted to you, and you're stuck dealing with acne. I mean, come on. I mean, who created this? You know, why did they create this thing?
I mean,
why do they create this thing?
You know, I still will break out from time to time especially if I don't get enough sleep. And high school, when you are the most prone to getting acne, you get the least amount of sleep. Bad news all around.
Yeah, I tell you what, though.
So I'm a big advocate.
First day of senior year, I remember it was honors chemistry. That was one science class that I did not take an AP class for because I just thought I don't need to take AP chemistry. There's no point.
We are already taking.
We had already taken a bunch of AP classes at that point. We were still taking more at that time. Anyway,
we took AP U.S. government, which was kind of a BS class, I will say. I mean, at our school, I will say.
I don't even think there was regular U.S. government. There was only AP U.S. government, you know.
Is that true?
I think so. But anyway, I remember I was in chemistry class, and I had to go to the bathroom. First day of school, I was nervous. Affected me bowels, and I remember I was like, teacher, I gotta use it. And I went to the bathroom, and I got back to class, and I remember this guy next to me. He's like, "Go number 2." I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "That's what I thought." I was like, "This guy knows. You know, he knows what's up." But you know, I realized probably in 11th grade that if I could hold it out long enough, I would go during recess or lunch, but I would not use the regular bathroom. I would go use either the nurse's office bathroom or I would use the magnet office bathroom because those were clean and students didn't use those.
Well, it's not just
that's a little inside tip for you high school students.
But it's not just that. It's just students can be rowdy, and you don't want to be in a stall going poo in high school because that, you know, something might happen, you know, in the bathroom because a student might just be, you know, do something roughhouse or something might happen. I don't know. I remember I was even just going pee one time in middle school, and there was a lot of kids in the bathroom, and this kid kept knocking the door, and it was just making me feel self-conscious while I was going pee, and I think the door even opened up, and I was just like, boy, oh boy, what a
I remember
that was.
I remember one time in high school I was going pee, and maybe it was at lunch, and then my friend, he went pee in the stall next to me at the same time, and he heard me going pee, and he said, "Yeah, Nicky, get it."
He didn't say
that.
He
said it. He said that.
No,
he said that.
He didn't.
He's like, "Get it, Nicky." I'm like, he's like encouraging me to go pee. It was just kind of funny, you know.
But what's funny is later in college, I would be in my floor in college, in my dormitory, it was a male and female. It was a co-ed. Co-ed, thank you. I just couldn't remember the word.
Oh my God, it sounds like an old man,
I feel like I'm an old man.
Sounds like Jerry Stiller.
In many ways, I feel like I'm an
Frank
old
Costanza.
man.
He's like, it's what's that place? What's it called?
The place to be.
The place to be.
Yeah, it was a co-ed dorm room, or dorm floor rather, and we had to share bathrooms, and that was kind of an experience, I will say. You got used to it after a while, but I will say, I never totally felt quite comfortable,
You don't quite feel comfortable going to the bathroom in the same room as the kind of sex you're attracted to, maybe, right?
Oh, no, that's not true. What are you talking about? What if you're a guy and you're going? What are you talking about?
Right. That's what I'm saying.
Oh, you think
that's why I feel like.
Well, I don't know.
That's why I feel like private bathrooms are maybe ultimately the best, because
wait, but that's
you don't have to go to the bathroom around anybody.
That's more of a projection. That's more of you projecting, actually. I feel, because you're saying you don't want to hear or see somebody of the sex that you're attracted to in that bathroom.
No, but
because you don't want to think of them that way. Is that what you're saying?
But I also don't want them to think of me that way.
Yeah, well, whatever. I mean,
but lately, you know what? I wasn't.
Well, anyway, yeah,
I've been a little bit more open about that lately, though. I remember we recently went to Vermont, like just a couple weekends ago, and we went hiking in some beautiful forest areas, and there were a couple times I had to go pee, in the forest, and I was trying to find my spot, and I thought, if there are people walking around here, if somebody comes up next to me, what if they see me pee? And I'm like, well, hey, if they see me pee, say they see me pee. I was starting to feel more comfortable with the idea that, like, I can understand the idea of somebody going to a nudist beach and just feeling comfortable and, just not caring about people seeing them naked.
I will say, though, that's a different idea, though, because everyone's naked.
But I think I could even feel comfortable with the idea of me being naked and other people accidentally seeing me naked.
No, I don't care. That's whatever on that. Well, it depends on what situation you're in. If you're going poo, or if you're getting up from going poo, that's a very vulnerable state. You don't want that to happen.
Sure.
I mean, I will say, on my freshman year, the door didn't lock very well, and this girl one time accidentally opened the door on me. I was going poo, and I mean, I guess in more what you're saying, actually, I guess she was like, "Oh, sorry," and she closed it immediately. And I guess I just thought, well,
she was like, "Oh, sorry."
Right. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I mean, I guess what
she's like, "Oh, sorry, get a load of Max."
Right, and then she brought the whole floor, and they all opened
the door, and they're like, "Oh, sorry."
Right. No, but to be honest, I guess I didn't really feel that self-conscious. It was like, it was an honest mistake, and everyone goes. I think at that point I had become acclimated to the idea that we were all sharing a bathroom.
Anyway, we digress.
Tangents
are formed. We digress.
Splitting hairs with Max and Nicky.
Tangents are formed.
Well, anyway, so back to senior year of high school. So, senior year, there was a little bit more of a relaxation because it wasn't taking as many courses.
Not true at all.
No, advanced placement courses.
No.
But you still felt especially the first semester, you did feel a certain amount of pressure, I will say, because you're still applying to colleges.
Yes, that is very enormous amount of pressure. But my second semester of senior year, I think, was my most stressful semester of high school.
Stressful? Is that what you said?
Stress-filled, rather.
No, stress-filled. You said stressed-filled.
I know. most stressful semester of my high school time.
Yes.
Because my second semester, first of all, yes, we were only doing 3 AP classes that semester, which is AP Studio Art, AP English Literature, and something else, U.S. Government.
AP U.S. Government. It should be noted that Nikki and I, every single one of our courses in high school, we took together. It was not intentional, but it was
necessary.
It was necessary because they only offered one of those courses often for whatever course we
Anyway,
took.
so not only did I
Those are
have
only
this
times we
AP
take.
Studio Art portfolio that had to be due, we had to do a bunch of works of art in a limited amount of time, especially because I didn't. Anyway, so I had that
we did
stress.
have a year,
I had
but-
that stress. I had the musical going on, which was very stressful because I had to learn a lot of lines. I
brought it onto your
I was
own
the
self.
lead character.
Nicky
Look,
brought it onto himself.
I
opted out of doing the music because I knew it would be stressful.
I'm what you call a classic overachiever. And look, I wanted the attention. I wanted to be the star. What can
it
I
wasn't
say?
about overachieve. I don't think you.
I am a classic overachiever.
No.
Yes, I didn't need to do that musical.
But you doing the musical was not a result of you being an overachiever, though. That wasn't you trying to. I think it was more you genuinely wanted to, just for your own.
I feel like classic overachievers, they want to do all of those things.
No, they want to excel at everything that they do. But I don't think. Yes, you wanted to excel at your performance, but you doing the musical was not, I think, it would look good. It would look good to do this.
I will say this, one thing that
it was just you had a genuine interest in theater that developed, into college, that you started taking more theater classes. And I think that's why you took the musical course. It was a genuine interest.
Did the musical, not
did
took
the musical. It was a genuine interest in wanting to
Anyway,
act.
but I had that we were on the tennis team and jazz band. There was a lot going on. And not to mention, you're stressed out about what college to get in the second semester.
Well, jazz band was not stressful.
I remember that
wasn't stressful.
I remember when we found out what colleges we were getting into, and I remember you called me up. I was at rehearsal
Nicky
for the
was at
musical,
rehearsal, and
you called me up
home
and
for
you
the day.
said that you had gotten into UC Berkeley, and I was so nervous. I was like,
It made
"Oh
Nicky
my
more
God, what
nervous,
if
I
Max got in and I didn't?" That would just.
I will tell you,
would've-
learning that you got into the college, it was one of my top choices, and learning that you got in is really
You mean learning learning that one gets in?
Yeah, it really makes you feel such a sense of relief
And
an accomplishment, but really relief because this thing that you've been working hard towards, it validates all that.
Sure.
If you didn't get in, it'd be like, what was the point of me doing it?
That would have been a crushing defeat, crushing blow.
Because we did work hard, and it's like, what was that for? And I always feel.
Anyway, Max, I was so nervous, and then I got home. I opened up the big envelope. Of course, you get a big envelope if you get in.
If you see if it's a big envelope, then no, it wasn't an envelope. I think at that time
we
it
just
was you
found
found
it
out
online, yeah.
actually.
But then eventually we got the
Eventually, you got the big envelope.
But anyway, so that was cool. But what did I want to say? Oh yeah, I'll say one thing that I was not a classic overachiever about was the SATs. I never studied for the SATs. I studied the night before, and that was it. Some people took courses on it.
I should have taken courses.
Perhaps you should have, but hey, you know what? Who cares? We still got into, I mean, I guess my first choice would have been Columbia University, which I didn't get into, but
Yeah,
I'm glad I went to UC Berkeley. Almost got a full ride my first year, and I would not have gotten the same perks going to Columbia. And I feel like I had a very diverse education at UC Berkeley. I don't know if I would have had as diverse of an education elsewhere. But that's,
I was really stubborn in my SAT studying. I didn't study either, and I should have studied because, boy, it's such a That's another thing. I feel like they place way too much emphasis on
Standardized testing.
This test that, some people aren't good test takers, and they can offer a lot to a college
I'm a slow
classroom.
reader. I'm a slow reader.
Right.
At the time, I was a very slow reader, and I would never finish the reading sections on those standardized tests, usually, especially on the SATs, because I was a slow reader. I don't think that really had anything to do with my intelligence at all.
Okay, well, anyway, I just want to. Okay, so
yeah.
But I was very stubborn.
But standardized testing, they're actually very biased, socioeconomically
They're
biased.
socioeconomically biased as well, and racially biased too.
Why Bach went to Leipzig? No, why are we being tested on speed reading almost? That's my gripe with it.
Right.
And then also you're stuck sitting, and then our year, they added an extra section to the SATs. So you had to write an essay too. So you had to sit an extra 40 minutes in this chair. So you're taking a test for almost 4 hours. You're gonna grow weary, and
your capacity for having to doing a test you don't have the endurance for that. So I don't know who does.
Yeah, I don't know who does. On top of that, you're a teenager and you have to wake up early to take these tests. Your mind is not fully functioning at those times, of those early times of the day.
They don't do it.
You don't want, I am telling you right now, if you're going to do standardized testing, which you shouldn't,
if you're going to do it, you could have it in I don't know.
If you're going to do it, maybe do it in chunks at a time. Maybe do the math section one day, and then the next day you go do the reading section, and so on and so forth. But also do them at later times of the day, please, for the love of all that is good and sacred.
Sacred and holy, I think. Well, you could say good and sacred, I guess.
Gee whiz.
Yeah, so I was very stubborn at the time, though, just to get back to me. And I didn't study either. I studied the night beforehand some flashcards that my older brother had from 8 years prior. Those were not even, it didn't have any relationship to the test that I took, really, at all. I mean, I didn't see any of those words on the test. So it didn't help me at all. And I should have studied. I should have maybe taken a course, although I still did pretty well, I think.
I did well in the math section, I will say that. I did very well in the math section.
Anyway.
My overall score wasn't bad.
My stubbornness came from the idea that if it was really measuring your aptitude, then you shouldn't study for it.
Right.
But, looking it up right now, the SAT originally was called the Scholastic Aptitude Test, but then they changed it to the Scholastic Assessment Test, and then they just changed it to the SAT-1 Reasoning Test, then just the SAT Reasoning Test, and now it's simply just the SAT. I guess if I were going with that, I was incorrect in the way I was thinking.
Well, also, but on top of that, you got to take the SAT-2 subject tests. That's another thing. All these tests. What's up with all these tests, I mean, come on. And by the by, I remember when I was in college, I remember taking this comparative literature class, and there are some kids in that class that they must have been good at math, because I read some of their essays and I thought to myself, okay, you clearly cannot write at all. I mean, you are a horrible writer. How did you get into this school? And I thought, you better be good at math and science, because this isn't working for you. Meaning, those guys, did they do well on the SATs on the rating section? I don't know. But maybe too much emphasis is placed on these tests anyway. That's all I'm saying. Anyway, what else do we have? Do we have any more about high school here?
Yes, we're not done here.
Oh my God, geez, this is long.
I know, because you keep rambling.
I'm rambling?
And so we had the SATs. We didn't talk about getting your car, driving for the first time and getting your license, man.
Oh my God.
That is a huge
How much time are we
passage.
at right now, just out of curiosity?
We are at 2 hours, 27 minutes right now.
Okay, we better wrap this up.
We are going to cut this into 2. cut it into two. Peace. Anyway, that was a real big deal, you know? I mean, that's a big rite of passage when you're in high school. I know this isn't for, especially I know a lot of people in New York don't go through this as much, or in cities where driving isn't as necessary. But for a lot of America, it is. And in Los Angeles particularly, I remember we got our permit, and you take these classes and you take the permit test. I got one wrong on the permit test, and I got to start driving in the student driving vehicle before Nicky and our friend that we took it with.
Because I think I didn't pass the first permit test that I took, right?
I don't remember, but the funny thing is, eventually, though,
When we took the driver's license
well,
test.
by the way, this was after they used to offer a course at school for driving, I believe, right? This was after they did that, but when we actually took the actual driving exam,
that was funny. When we took the driving courses, though, when I got behind the wheel for the first time, the guy was like, I was kind of messing up. I had never driven before, and he's like, "What's the matter? Haven't you ever driven before?" And I was like, "No, I haven't." It was such a weird thing for him to say.
Right? It was very weird. Well, because that was one mistake I did at first was I kept putting my left foot on the brake and my right foot on the accelerator and using, like, basically I would kind of be revving up the engine. It was really a bad idea. And the guy's like, no, you just use one foot. But
God, it makes me think. God, it's been
it's
been a year and a half since I've driven, which is the longest I've not driven a car.
Right. Okay. So anyway, the funny thing is, I did not pass the exam, the driving exam, the first time. Nicky did.
I got the most amount of errors you could possibly get without failing the test. And in fact, there was a stop sign that I came to a really sudden halt at because it was blocked by trees. And the guy, even during my driving test, as I came to the stop sign, he said, "Stop!" And I was like, oh my God. And I thought to myself, well, I failed the test. When I pulled into the DMV and we parked, he said, "Well, you got 15 errors." And he's like, I could have failed you at that stop sign. But he didn't. He passed me because I think he felt bad that Max had failed right before me. And I think he thought, well, one of them has to pass. So you know what? I passed. That was on the day of our 16th birthday.
I just wanted to say, yeah, so Nicky passed, and then I did not pass. And then the following day at school, some people knew that we had taken the test, and Nicky's like, "License," and everyone was like, "License," and they were like to me, and I was like, "Nah, no license," and they're like, and then I took it again, and I didn't pass again, and then I took it at another location because I thought that location would be easier, and guess what? I didn't pass it again. Finally, the fourth time I took it, I kept avoiding our home DMV because I thought it would be really too busy and I thought it would be harder to take the test there. But I wanted to take the test as soon as possible because I cried after the third time of failing because I was just like, I'm never going to get this thing. And I finally took it in Hollywood, California, USA. And guess what? I passed it. The place I thought it was going to be the hardest too. I passed it there.
Because of all the congestion and traffic, That's why you were afraid, right?
Oh, yeah. But actually, one might argue that it might have been easier because of that, because things were going much slower and I can just kind of deal with that in a better way. But I don't know, maybe not. To be honest, I really think you don't really become a better driver until you actually start driving by yourself. Yeah, I mean, I did drive with my mom often when I had my permit, but I just feel I actually kind of sideswiped a guy once, and we pulled over, and he let us off. He's like, "Oh, it's just a paint thing. It's fine." Anyway.
Well, anywho, so driver's license, I'll tell you this. the first weekend I had my driver's license, I felt so liberated. I took my mom's car. I drove myself to an open mic, a comedy open mic, and I did stand-up on a Friday night at the Hot Wired Cafe.
Hot Wired? That's not what it's called.
Yeah, it was the Hot Wired Cafe.
Oh, okay.
It was in Studio City, I believe. And I think I did pretty well, too. But I just felt so good just being able to drive myself to this open mic. And because prior to that, I remember having to ask friends to drive us to open mics. And that was kind of annoying to have to do. But it was so nice to
For them, too. It was really annoying.
But I just remember doing that, and it felt good to just be able to do something on my own, with my own. Well, it wasn't my own car, it was my mom's car. Eventually, now here's a story, if you'll allow me, Max.
I'll allow it.
Eventually, I got a hand-me-down car from my sister. It was a 1986 Toyota Camry in Burgundy. And so it was my first car. It was definitely a clunker. It was definitely a clunker.
Oh, wait. I don't even think I had my license to say that I had that car.
Right.
Am I correct in that?
Right. I drove it around. It was a clunker. Sometimes, I remember this one time, it wouldn't even start right away out of the student parking lot. It was kind of embarrassing, and had to get jumper cables from our friend to jumpstart it. But
it was embarrassing, though it shouldn't be, because kids shouldn't have.
I remember seeing these kids with these nice cars.
They'd have these nice cars.
These kids. I remember this friend of ours. He was really short, and he drove this huge SUV, and I just thought,
like, boy, is
what,
he
are you trying to compensate for something?
Yeah, it's really funny.
You don't need this in Hollywood, too.
He didn't need it.
Or not always in the Valley, I guess, but you don't need this in Los Angeles, really. But so one time in March of, I guess it was our sophomore year of high school, I came out to the student parking lot. We were supposed to go to a Science Bowl meet, actually. We were supposed to drive to one. Came out to the student parking lot, and I was like, where's my car? I know I parked it here, and I kept looking for it. It's not a huge student parking lot. And eventually all the cars were leaving the parking lot and realized
car wasn't
there. And we ran into our friend who had a similar car.
His car was
still parked there. His car was a 1985 Toyota Corolla, and
in blue, in matte blue.
No, it was not in blue. I'm sorry.
Yes, it was.
No, it wasn't.
I'll bet you $5.
His Ford Taurus was blue.
What?
His Ford Taurus was blue, or Ford Escort was blue. This was not a blue car.
Okay.
It was like a grayish kind of car.
All right. Well, in any event. So
somebody had. We gathered that somebody had stolen my car, and they not only did that, they broke into our friend's car.
And the reason our friend's car was still in the parking lot
is they broke into his car, but they jammed the ignition. They couldn't start.
Here's why.
You can open up
on Toyotas made in the mid '80s.
No, actually on all Japanese cars, and even some American cars from the early '90s, even. You can open the car with a pair of scissors.
And start the ignition with a pair of scissors.
With a pair of scissors,
our friend's car, probably it was used, the car, and I'm sure the previous owner had gone through that situation and had changed the ignition on it.
So the people who stole our car, they broke into his car, but they couldn't start the ignition with the pair of scissors. So they jammed it.
They jammed his ignition.
He couldn't start it.
And then they ended up going for the next best thing, which was our car, and they were able to break in and steal it. And
a month, cut to a month. So I had just gotten my license, by the way. This was in February.
I'm sorry, the students.
This was like a month after I got my license.
And it was done by another student.
This was in our student parking lot of our high school. No security cameras to look at who might have stolen it. Anyway, very bizarre. That was a month after I got my license, unfortunately. Was without a car, just after getting my license. A month later, they had found the car on the side of the street, and it was impounded, and we got it out of the impound. I guess we had to pay to get it out of the impound. Pardon. And a couple days after we got it back, first of all, when we got it back, we realized that the carjackers stole all of our CDs and cassette tapes that were in there.
The CDs,
They stole the Billy Joel 52nd Street. They stole the Madonna Immaculate Collection. They stole the jazz CDs, Nine in Tunisia.
You're forgetting.
Meditation and
they stole Duran Duran.
No, Max, you're messing the story up. Oh, gosh.
Sorry.
You're messing it up.
I am messing it up.
You're messing the story up.
No, we had also a mixed CD on there that had a collection of jazz, some late 70s, early 80s adult contemporary hits.
Like the Little River Band.
And I believe Robbie Dupree was on there.
Anyway, they
stole also Earth, Wind, and Fire.
They stole all of those things. The one cassette tape that they left was Duran Duran, Seven and the Ragged Tiger. But it was virtually unplayable. We put it in the cassette player.
No, it was jammed into the cassette player, I believe.
Anyway, we couldn't play it. It was broken. And we just thought, wow, they must have hated Duran Duran.
But loved everything else.
Can't imagine why they would have hated Duran Duran. I think Duran Duran's one of the best bands from the 80s of all time.
Well, one of the best bands of all time.
Sure. They've got some real grooving beats. If you want to check this out during the quarantine, actually, the bassist of Duran Duran, John Taylor, he was doing tutorials on how to play the bass lines from all the biggest Duran Duran hits. Those were really a lot of fun.
He was
check
quite influenced by disco, actually.
Well, yeah. The band Chic, especially. Anyway, so we got the car back.
And by the way, not only did they steal those musical cassettes and CDs, they also stole the headrests of the seats. Ugh. Isn't that frustrating?
Anyway, we cut to a couple days later. We were playing basketball with some friends. I was driving a friend home and got into a car accident with it. Now, it wasn't really my fault. And so it was basically like the light was yellow and I sort of ran the yellow. But this guy, anyway, long story short, got in an accident with it. And I suppose it was a blessing in disguise because after a long sort of process, we eventually got money out of it. And then on top of that, we were able to sell the car. We repaired the car, sold the car for a lot more we got a lot more for the car than we would have been able to sell it for. So eventually, that's what happened to that car. But
then our mom
eventually got a new car and passed down her car to us, which was a 1996 Kia Sophia.
And now that was also problematic because
during our senior year
of high school,
I was driving us to school, and
at that point I had my license. Well, we were switching off on driving at that.
Driving to school.
It had just been a few months after Nicky I had gotten my license. Just to clarify that,
I was driving to school, and luckily I was in a residential area, but the brakes started going out on me. Oh my gosh. We grew up in a area of Los Angeles that has a lot of hills. If that had happened on those hills, that would have been very dangerous for us. Who knows what kind of horrible accident we could have got into. But luckily it happened in this residential area in Studio City.
And there was a gas station nearby.
And I kept pushing the brake, and I didn't even think to pull the emergency brake. And eventually I kept, juicing it, and eventually I got the brake to work a little bit, stopped at a gas station, kind of didn't park correctly, and the gas station attendant was like, no, you got to repark this. And I was like, but the brakes don't work. And he's like, sorry, you got to do it. And I was like, okay. And I started the car back up, and the brakes weren't working again. I was about to crash into one of the gas tanks, and eventually I got the brake to work, called a tow truck. We were late to school that day, needless to say. Anyway, the whole point is we've had quite the experience with cars during our high school years, and even beyond, actually, when you think about it.
Anyway, maybe some of you can relate to that, of having your first car.
Being a junkie kind of car.
In your high school or post-high school years.
Yeah.
So that's the driving bit of this portion of this driving bit of this podcast. I know Nikki keeps saying, so are we about to wrap this up?
I've got one more thing.
But we still haven't talked about prom.
Oh,
First time in a limo, I might say.
first and only time I've ever been in a limousine.
First time, only time I've ever been in a limo.
You know what? Not that cool.
It wasn't that special. But here's the thing about it.
No, the limousine is not that
I did have a date for that. I took a friend of mine, and we're still friends to this day.
You know, I took somebody that was in my musical, that was an actress in the musical I was in, and I wasn't really too friendly with her. I should have probably taken somebody else I was more friends with, you know. That's probably what I should have done.
Well, anyway.
But, you know, I regret, you know, again, regrets, you know, you have them, you do them, and you may make mistakes, and you'll hopefully learn from them. I don't know.
Well, anyway, yes, at prom, now, what did you think about prom, Nikki? I got this suit. You know, we rented tuxes, and we rented this tux that just was so not. Speaking of bad fashion, the people working there didn't know what the hell they were doing. I looked like some 70s star or something like that because it was so big on me.
Ill-fitting.
It was so ill-fitting.
The pants were so ill-fitting that I decided to use the pants from our regular suits, you know, that we had. They weren't tuxedo pants, but I thought, well, at least these are going to be better fitting than the pants that they gave us.
I remember that year
we wanted to look like James Bond, you know. I remember saying that.
And I look like more like, not that I dislike Roger Moore and James Bond. I like him.
No, you did not look like Roger Moore.
No, I didn't. I said,
pardon.
Well, yeah,
no, you looked more. We wanted to look more like James Bond, but we looked more like James
Caan. No, I don't know.
No. In misery, you know, because we were miserable, you know.
Right. No. The thing is,
actually, you know, when I put those pants
my
on
pants
from my
seem kind of like James.
When
Bond.
I did put on the pants from my regular suit, it looked all right actually, and I remember some people saying, "Oh, Nicky, you clean up pretty nicely at the prom." You know.
Well, anyway, I do remember though, most of the other guys did not wear bow ties.
No, that's not true.
No,
some of them didn't.
A lot of them didn't. They wore regular ties, like kind of a tuxedo that had a nice tie. And I just thought, man, what are you doing?
That's not classic.
It's not classic. It's not James Bond. That's not. It's not Bruce Wayne.
You know, that was the only time I ever worn a tuxedo. I have had to wear a bow tie for performances in the wind ensemble in college. No, but those weren't tuxedos, though.
We also had to wear them for. We took the classical guitar class at the local community college near our high school.
And we were in the guitar ensemble, rather.
That's what I meant. What did I say?
We were in the classical guitar ensemble.
That's right.
And we had to wear bow ties for that. But that's neither here nor there. But
why you always say it's neither here nor there? I mean, boy, oh boy.
Well, that was just another extracurricular activity we did, was being involved in the classical guitar ensemble when we were in high school.
We didn't do that out of any feeling of obligation to do something, to have that on our college application. We genuinely wanted to be in that class.
But it was just doing that on top of everything else. It was a lot, you know.
Sure. But we did also, I remember, we did take 2 semesters of, wait, what happened exactly? I remember we needed to fulfill PE credit one semester.
We took a golf class.
We took a golf class at the community college, and that was kind of cool. Anyway,
I don't know why we didn't need to fulfill the PE credit. I don't think.
I know,
because we did the tennis team. You know,
right.
I think maybe we were worried there wasn't going to be a tennis team, which was another thing. You know, there was one point when we were sophomores and there wasn't going to be a tennis team, and so we had to go out of our way and try to gather up people to form 10 players to form a complete tennis team. And not only that, we had to find ourselves a tennis coach because our tennis coach from the prior year had retired. And we eventually got our friend who had graduated the year prior to take a certification course to become certified to be able to coach our tennis team. And he did that. And after all that work, they canceled our tennis team. Can you believe it? And because I guess we had forfeited too many games before we had.
We also had a couple
players.
friends that said they were going to be on the team, and they just kept procrastinating and didn't end up doing it.
Anyway,
that's a little bit of a boring story.
Well, but then the following year, in 11th grade and 12th grade, our high school was on athletic probation, meaning there weren't enough sports being played. The sports that they were playing they were good at. Like the football team is pretty good, but they were like, we have to have a tennis team,
right?
And so what they did was, on our junior year, Max and I were the only real tennis players on the team. The rest of the team they filled with the football players, and the coach was the assistant football coach, and it was really funny. Because they didn't have good like tennis court etiquette. And I remember this one guy who was, he was kind of like this football kind of guy. And I remember a kid fell down on the tennis court and he started laughing at him as the kid he was playing. And, you wouldn't do that on the tennis court. You wouldn't start laughing at the opposing player. You would check to make sure they're okay and everything. It was just, it was funny.
It was funny. But it's kind of interesting to have seen the decline of the tennis team of the high school that we went to, because it actually, before our years there, it had been a really good tennis team.
And our freshman year
was actually still pretty darn good. But then after that, it wasn't good anymore.
Right.
Anyway, so we talked about prom. Now, one more thing to talk about.
Well, we didn't talk about prom yet, really.
Oh, okay. What else do you want to talk about?
The one funny thing is that I actually ran for prom king.
Okay. Sorry, Nicky's messing around with the thing, and
I actually ran.
I wish he wouldn't do that.
I actually ran for prom king, and my friend ran for prom queen, and we thought that it'd be funny if he got prom queen and I got prom king.
Oh, who ran for?
Wes ran for prom queen.
Oh, really?
Neither of us got very many votes though. But I mean, it's not like we cared. We didn't care about getting these things. It just we thought it would be funny if we both got it.
You know what though? I bet nowadays they would. That would be, at the time. This was a long time ago, but now that they were.
That would be encouraged.
Doing it. Yeah, that would be maybe encouraged, or not encouraged, but a lot more accepted. And I think Nicky and our friend were kind of doing it as kind of a joke, but that wouldn't even be seen as a joke anymore. That would be like maybe taken, more seriously.
Right, but it was also a joke for me that I was even running for prom king. It was something I didn't care about at all.
Sure. Well, we actually, our friend that we were friends with currently today, he ran for homecoming king our senior year, and he won.
Sure, yeah. Shout out to Mike Krems.
That's right. Shout out to Mike Krems. Yeah, and I remember I think they had to do a waltz or something like that for the dance or something.
Oh, that's cool. If the prom was all about like classic dances like the waltz and tango and just ballroom dancing and swing, that would be really cool. Well, now that would be hip.
But people would have to know how to do those dances.
Sure. It would be cool if you'd have to learn.
In high school, I took a few dance courses myself. I took 7 swing courses, and I took 3 salsa lessons.
Congratulations.
Yes, all of my own volition.
Well, later on, Max and I would actually take tap dance classes and a few jazz dance and ballet classes. And let me tell you what, for those of you that don't know, ballet is
why are you holding your mic
hardest
like this? That's what you're doing.
Dance. I mean, requires so much upper body strength and lower body strength, really. And it's just, you got to respect a ballet dancer. You just got to.
It is very hard, ballet. And what an extraordinary genre of dancing. I mean, people who can do it well just are, it's just
I'll tell you,
amazing.
A movie we saw during the quarantine that is my second time watching it. It's one of the best movies of all time. It's called The Red Shoes. It's about a ballet dancer. Go see it. It is beautiful, and it is striking.
It's not just beautiful because of the choreography, but the cinematography is very
the Technicolor is vibrant,
And I think it's just one of the most beautifully shot films
It's
ever.
a Powell and Pressburger film. Those guys are artists. They're not just filmmakers, they're artists. It's from 1949. Go check it out.
It's great.
Right, 1949?
Maybe. Yeah, I think you're right. Anyway, prom.
But you know what? My dad had... I remember we were going to prom and you had to pay a ticket. It was at the Renaissance Hotel in Hollywood. And I remember my dad saying, skip the prom. Go take out your date to a really fancy dinner. Spend the money on that. In retrospect, that probably would have been the better choice. I mean, you got to go to your prom.
No, in retrospect, I disagree, actually.
In retrospect...
Here's the thing. I know that Nicky...
In the grander scheme of things, if I didn't feel like an obligation to feel like, oh, you got to go to your prom, then I would have felt like, yeah, go take a date out to a very nice dinner.
I disagree. Here's why. You probably would regret today if you didn't go to your prom because you would have kept wondering, what would a prom been like? I wish I had gone to my prom. So aren't you glad that you went to your prom, even though it wasn't for you, the greatest thing in the world? I mean, not for me. I mean, like, I had fun at the prom, by the way.
Yes, 1948, the Red Shoes.
I still had fun. I mean, I know Nicky said he didn't think it was that fun, but I had fun at the prom.
No, it was kind of fun.
It
was kind of fun. I mean, I don't know. It was kind of fun.
But I'm saying what you're trying to say is that it was not some life-changing thing, and that you think that it would have been better if you had taken a date to a nice fancy dinner. You would today be thinking, boy, I wonder what could have been if I had gone to my prom. And I am glad, definitely, I went to my prom, for sure.
How glad I am. Nancy Wilson. Anyway, that's prom. I
do remember, though, when I was taking my date home, I felt I was somewhat quiet. And I felt like I wish I had talked more, and maybe, we could have talked about how we thought of the prom or something like that. I was just, I was kind of timid in that respect, I guess. Even though she was a friend of mine, And
anyway, so I guess the last thing would be talking about high school graduation. Boy, the week leading up to high school graduation, I was a wreck. I had volunteered myself to perform a song at the high school graduation, and I knew I'd be performing in front of the largest crowd I've ever performed.
Not me.
In front of.
I was like, I'm done.
And I started getting major stomach pains. I remember I went to the doctor and I was like, what do I do? And they gave me some prescription for it and didn't help at all. And gosh, I remember, so our friend Hike, who was the valedictorian, he did his speech and at the graduation, and he said, and now I'd like to present to you.
Well, he's more like, and now I'd like to introduce Nicky Weinbach. He kind of sounded like a robot, at least the first year we met him.
He came from Armenia.
And I think almost seemed like he learned English by way of like some computer program or something like that was repeating words back to him, because he sounded like a computer. It was funny because the first time I met him was in AP Computer Science, and he'd be like, hello, sorry, I actually shouldn't be saying this, but his English inflections got a lot better later on.
Anyway,
he was a really good guy, by the way.
He said, now I'd like to present one of the first friends I made at this high school when I moved to America. He's going to perform a song for you, Nicky Weinbach. I was so nervous. I was shaking. I went up to it wasn't a stage. It was on the field of the community college, the football field of the community college next to our high school. And I got there, and to soothe my nerves, I said, I'm going to play an oldies tune for you, and for all of you, for anybody who knows the words, especially you elder folk, please don't be afraid to sing along. And I thought, if people sing along with me, it'll make me less nervous, actually. And I started playing the song, and people did start singing along with me. It was "In My Life" by the Beatles.
Oh, they sang along, really?
Yeah, at least at first. And, finally, I saw a friend of mine start tearing up, and I was like, oh, that's a good sign. And
Oh, really? Well, you'll tell me who after.
And I finished the song, and I just was so nervous that I was quick to just rush back to my seat after I was finished. I said, thank you. And I rushed back to my seat. And after the graduation, my mom told me that, oh, you got a standing ovation. You didn't, and I was like, really? And she's like, yeah, a lot of the students were standing up. I was like, oh man, I wish I could have taken that in to experience that, but I didn't. I was so nervous that I just quickly went back to my seat, But I remember immediately later that night, my stomach problems went away.
Well, I still get that. George Gershwin had referred to it as composer's stomach, as he would call it back in the day. Of course, well, anyway, I don't want to talk about that.
I remember, though, when I got the sort of fake diploma, and then I went up to shake the people's hands, and then I shook this one teacher's hand, and he's like, God, you were great. I know you're going to get a recording contract in a couple years. And, well...
Boy, he was wrong.
He was wrong, and...
I mean, I'm not diminishing Nicky. I'm just saying
I know,
he was wrong.
It always makes me feel like, man, I don't want to let those kinds of people down, This is partially why I continue to do...
Why did you pause when you said that?
This is why...
It seemed like emotional. You're like,
this is...
I don't want to let those people down. It almost seemed like that.
I don't want to let those people down that believed in me in high school and in college. They thought I had some sort of talent, and I don't want to let them down. And so that's kind of why I keep pursuing what I'm doing until I become successful. It's like I don't want to let those people down.
Yeah. Okay.
What? It's true.
Yeah. Okay.
It's true. That is how I feel. Anyway, by the way, I'm not, getting emotional or anything. I still have remnants of a cold here. That's why I've been coughing throughout this podcast. So that was graduation, and we went to this grad night, which was at Disneyland that night, and it was the most people I've ever experienced in one place, I think, ever in my life.
No, that's
well, actually,
not true
no.
at
The
all.
most place people, that was in Amsterdam on New Year's. That was the most people in one.
No, what does that mean? Most people in one place.
That was like where you couldn't move. Remember Amsterdam? We could not move.
No. I mean, I've been in a subway where I was like sardines. That's the most people in one place. Like, what do you mean relative
I don't
to what?
know. I
It
don't
doesn't
know.
make sense.
Anyway, it was the most people I've ever experienced at Disneyland ever. And
Sure. And here's what happened, though. I don't know if you guys experienced, grad nights.
we shouldn't have gone to grad night, by the way. I actually do regret going to grad night. We should have just, I remember our older brother was like, you don't want to just go home and relax? You just graduated. And I'm thinking to myself, that's what I should have done.
Yeah.
I really should have done that.
Perhaps you're right. We should have done that.
I will say this,
better
though.
spent on something else.
I will say
But
this,
here's what
though.
happened.
Before we get into this, I will say this. Prior to the graduation, I remember there were a couple guys that I never liked throughout high school. One kid who I never liked since kindergarten. He was sort of my enemy. And even got in a couple fights with him in middle school. I remember I did shake his hand before graduation, and I just kind of wanted to end on a clean slate, and I said, I don't know why we ever had our differences, let's be friends. And I shook his hand, and that was that. And I think that night was the last time I ever saw him.
Okay. Well, anyway, grad night. Okay. Sorry, Nicky keeps doing this thing with his legs. And
I need to stretch my legs. I've been sitting in the spot for
a
long time now.
So, grad night, it was so congested there. And we were in a kind of a group with some friends, and we all tried to stay together. And I remember we were trying to get through this crowd, so we all kind of held each other's hands as we made our way through the crowd. And I think I was kind of leading us. And then somehow my hand got let go from one of my friends and I got lost from everybody else. And you know what? It was the best thing that could have happened because everyone wanted to do something, they wanted to all be together and try to do everything together. In a congested place like that, you want to be by yourself, especially because you're going to have some disagreements in the group about what you're going to do. And I was like, great, I'm free to do my own thing. I hate to say it, but I cut a lot of lines and I was able to get my money's worth that night. And I went on a lot of rides because I was by myself.
Eventually, somehow we ran into Max amongst all these people. Couldn't believe it. And we heard about Max, what Max was doing. And eventually I joined Max and started cutting lines with him. And I was able to get some money's worth by going on some rides. And then two of our friends were like hearing about what Max and I were doing. They're like, oh, let's do this too, And so the four of us cut a couple more lines and went on a couple rides. And
there was a way, I'm not advocating cutting, but I just felt like at that point I wasn't getting my money's worth. And I needed to, I needed to make it worthwhile. Look, I was in high school. If I did it differently, I probably would. Because I don't advocate cutting. I think that's not cool, actually.
Even though I did it quite a bit at museums when I was studying in college, when I was studying abroad in France and traveling around Europe, because I just was on a strict schedule and I needed to be certain places, and I was like, I can't wait in these lines. I can't believe how easy it was for me to cut some of these lines, to be honest.
Look, is cutting bad? Yes, it is. It's not cool. But if you can make it work, then should you be rewarded for that? Maybe. I don't know. What do you think about that, Nicky?
You don't want to cut lines if you're with other people, but if you're by yourself...
If you're by yourself, though, and you can make it seem like that you're not cutting, and then, but at the same time, I feel like, if you had a group of people doing it, though, when it was like four of us doing it, I did feel a little worse about that because, in retrospect, I feel a little worse about that because if it was just one of me doing it, it's not really affecting the rest of the people who are also there trying to get their money's worth.
This is not, you know what? Come on.
All right, cut it out.
No, we're not going to cut it
No,
out.
but just cut myself out of the rest of this conversation.
Right. You know what?
It needs not
I
be
think
had.
we've really
to not be had.
talked extensively about high school. Any last words?
Let's see. Main last words is, high school, there's a lot of pressure for a lot of people on how to be, and just a lot of pressure with schoolwork and trying to get into a good college, and you're self-conscious because you're changing.
You're gonna make mistakes. No, you're gonna.
I think you're gonna say the last word. Any last words I have to say?
Okay.
I'm just gonna say you're gonna make mistakes, and just try to just be true to yourself. Do what you feel is cool, and that makes you cool. And be confident in yourself, and that makes you cool. And be genuine. If anything, just be genuine.
But hey,
and
if you're not genuine, that's part of growing up. You're making mistakes. You're learning about who you are as a person.
That's also true, Nicky. That's also true.
And so just do what you got to do in high school. Try to be yourself. But it's okay if you make mistakes. You're going to learn about yourself. You're going to grow. And that's okay. And to piggyback off of that, our friend Mike once told us, he said, this was fairly recently, he went to high school with us, and he said, you and Max were the coolest guys in high school, and most of us didn't even know it at the time.
I don't know if that's necessarily true.
Well, if you think about it,
I don't know. I think
we took those guys to comedy clubs. That's pretty cool,
Yeah, but
we exposed them to the.
Not to be self-deprecating, but I also, you sound a little braggadocious right now. I don't think. I think there were probably other people that were, unsung heroes. I mean, I'm calling ourselves heroes. I don't mean that. I mean, they were kind of unsung cool people. And as you said, we were learning to learning
Time
about
out.
things.
This is what I'm trying to say. Yes, we were learning about ourselves and making mistakes.
And
but
t-
what
and
I'm trying to
art
say,
and
what
things
I'm
like
trying to
that
say
and-
is,
and
what I'm trying to say,
tastes were developing.
What I'm trying to say is, we always try to be true to ourselves. I think as best as we could.
That's true.
And that's what I'm trying to say. That's what makes you cool, is being true to yourself. Don't try to be what other people think is cool or trying to be. Just be true to yourself and you'll be all right. You're going to make mistakes, no doubt about it, but that's okay.
Sure.
Anyway.
Sure. But that's not also just for the...
Oh, God, you don't want to end on a good note.
Just for the administrations of these high schools, I gotta say, let's start high school later and let's not impose so much gosh darn work on these kids. They need their sleep more than anybody else
They need their
does.
sleep and they need their lives. They need their lives.
That's true.
Thank you for tuning in. Oh, hold on 1 second. Before we end the episode, just want to let you know, if you've enjoyed this episode...
I know this episode was a bit long-winded.
But it's a two-parter. If you enjoyed this episode and you want to continue to hear more from Splitting Hairs with Max and Nicky, and want extra bonus episodes and other benefits, please subscribe to our Patreon page, patreon.com/splittinghairs. Thank you for tuning in to another edition of Splitting Hairs with Max and Nicky.
Tune in next time.